Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the places at Hawk Blogger. And it's a Seahawks Saturday. So, you know what that means. Whenever Jeff Simmons can get a moment to hide away and pretend to be a non-parent for a few minutes, he's going to take it. So, Jeff, morning to you on this fine Saturday. How's little Chase doing?
He's good. We're a little delayed today. He wasn't going down as easily as usual, but he's been like crazy hungry this week. He's not sleeping as much. He's eating like crazy, and when he wakes up, he acts like he hasn't had food in like 10 years. So my wife is doing the bulk of the work this week since I've kind of gone back to work. So he's been good. He's been good. I tried to get him to watch a little football last week. It didn't go too well, but he's, he's
Well, we
doing
got we got to set up a play date between Chase and Jack McDonald. So on the odd chance that Chase becomes a football player, you've got an in later on in life.
Yeah, man. I need to talk to Mike. I don't know how he was like back in like the game planning mode within like a week of his kid being born. It was like 2 days.
Yeah,
He is
yeah.
like he's built differently than I am. That's for sure.
Well, I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. Not many people are NFL coaches by 37. Definitely built a little bit differently.
He's my age, I think. I think me and him have a lot we can relate to.
You, Clint Kubiak, Mike McDonald's is a popular age to be right now is 37. So, um, you know, usually we jump in and we talk about all the stuff going on in the NFL. Obviously, there wasn't a lot going on this week with it being Pro Bowl games week or whatever. But there was a fair amount of news that seemed to come out, or at least a number of podcasts that came out around Clint Kubiak and around the Seahawks. And I think you've listened to more of those things than I have. So I'd love to hear, some of the ones that you listened to. I listened to a little bit of the Gary Kubiak interview. We should talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about Senior Bowl stuff. I'm sure, I uploaded some videos for YouTube members. Hopefully they're enjoying that. And then kind of the highlight of the show, we'll do at least one, but maybe two mock drafts where we do NFC West picks. So Jeff and I will each take two teams from the NFC West, and we will go through a mock and pick for those teams. And we will do it genuinely. It'll be hard for the 49ers to not just try to screw them, but I think it'd be interesting to see, like, based off where we think those teams' needs are and where their picks are. I haven't even really looked at where their picks are and outside of the first round, really. I have a feeling it's going to be depressing to see some of the draft capital that I'm guessing some of them have. But we'll do that, and we'll kind of learn a little bit about where things might go with those teams. And I'm looking forward to doing that, man. I think we always learn a lot when we do that. What else? Anything else that we should make sure is on the docket for today?
No, it's been a weird kind of week for the Seahawks where like Clint Kubiak comes out, he gets hired like at the end of the game. I think it was the end of the NFC Championship that rumors comes out. Then you're like, okay, maybe we're going to see some names. Maybe we're going to see a staff get built. I don't know if that was the Senior Bowl week. I don't know if it's like the new process or the Seahawks just moved really slow. But like you see all these other coaching searches, like Shoddy got a job this week. He's like, whole staff has come together. Aaron Glenn. We saw like Aaron Curry, and we haven't seen anything. Like that Seahawks quarterback coach interviewed, and they had to do another interview with like a Rooney Rule guy that was like the Jets assistant or the Giants assistant. Everyone's like, oh, they're looking at Drew Lock. And it's like, no, they had to do a Rooney Rule interview. It's probably going to be that. But it's been a little bit of a bummer. Like we just haven't seen like the staff come together. And it's also kind of weird because like Jake Peets, his name's kind of up in a couple of jobs. Doesn't seem like he got the Tampa job. They hired someone else. Scott Huff, like, and it's kind of weird that we just haven't heard a single thing. And you're looking at these other teams, and they're filling out their whole staff. So I've been kind of like, just from like a interest standpoint or a buzz standpoint, it's been a little strange.
Do you think that's because they haven't been hiring, or because maybe they're planning to keep their internal guys that they've already got? What do you think?
I don't know, and I think it's possible that they're going to keep a lot of the staff the same. like Jake Peetz as a passing game coordinator would be a very logical fit. He's been in like the McVay tree, very natural. But like Scott Huff seems like a bit of a mismatch with him. Like they've had that guy John Benton in San Francisco and New Orleans, and we just haven't seen much. I think the timing of it again, everyone just probably keeps thinking, but like McDonald's been at the Senior Bowl, like you were there, you put out the picture of him. I think Kubiak and McDonald probably would want to put their heads together, sit down, and do this together. I'm guessing it was just timing related. I think Pete's maybe one to keep. I'd be surprised if Huff stays on board, but I don't know. It might be like they're keeping a lot of the same guys, like Charles London, the quarterback coach, interviewed for other jobs. He could be. I don't know what's going on with him. Kenny Polamalu, we thought might jump to Pete Carroll's staff. They haven't really picked anyone other than the scheduler, who some people yesterday were like, how are the Seahawks going to survive without their schedule guy? It's like, yeah, it's like, why do we fans care about that? I don't know. Like,
yeah, that was kind of funny. I mean, there was a linebackers coach that used to work for the Seahawks, and I mean, I've done a show for 313 straight days. I'm obviously pretty obsessed with the Seahawks, and I've been obsessed for a long time.
yeah,
I never heard of the guy. I know almost all the coaches. I never heard of that guy. And then this other guy gets hired, and he's basically almost sounds like the administrative assistant for the coach, like keeps things going. I'm not belittling the job. Like it's clearly a really important job, and this guy seems to do it really well. But I don't know that I'd count that as like a huge loss for the team where, like some fans definitely seem to react like, oh man, we're losing it now. And I'm like, really?
that was my reaction. I was like, I can't believe anyone as a fan would care about this. Like, he was with Pete at USC, and well, let's get the guy like yesterday who left, like the VP of coaching admin. I think it was really telling that Brady Henderson, who's the most tied-in guy maybe we know, he had to go online and Google his title. So if Brady doesn't know what like this guy actually does, I don't think we should as fans be all up in arms about it. But yeah, I've been a little surprised there hasn't been more Seattle guys going over there yet. John Glenn was the guy you referenced. Like I saw some Raiders guys be like, this is one of the best inside linebacker coaches in the league. And I'm like, really? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. Like he was Washington's assistant to Ken Norton Jr. this year. So I think that's reaching, but that's what I mean. Fans are always excited by new names and new hires. So I've been a little surprised and bummed we just haven't got the names come out yet. But I think that'll happen this week. I think Kubiak is supposed to speak this week, so I think we'll hear a lot more.
Yeah, and I'm relatively confident that with John and Mike being back in Seattle after this weekend, maybe they might already be back. That they'll do a press conference from Clint Kubiak next week at some point. There is some like sketchy weather coming in. Like we might get snow tonight, tomorrow, the rest of this week. Not sure. It could be nothing. Like Seattle weather forecasters, I think they're maybe like 5% of the time accurate on snow forecasting. Like I basically don't believe it's going to snow until I see it coming out of the sky. And then I don't believe it's going to be meaningful until I see it pile up. Like I just don't trust the weather forecasters here, but in any event, it could be 10 inches. It could be nothing. So it might be an interesting first week for Clint Kubiak, and it might be interesting trying to get down to the VMAC for that press conference. So, but yeah, they won't do, I think it's a pretty sure bet. They won't do that press conference until they have some decisions on these coaches. And so it might be the end of the week instead of the beginning. I thought it was going to be like Monday or Tuesday. Maybe it still will be, but I haven't heard anything yet from the team. So, yeah, there's definitely some shoes left to drop, so to speak.
Yeah, and we'll see if it's timing related. The Seahawks moved at a very meticulous pace or slow pace for this OC hiring, but at first I was getting nervous. I know Brian, you'd kind of like be like, "What are you talking about? Like this is just like them being thorough," but like I don't know, it just felt like the more, and you asked me this earlier, but I think you alluded to this, I think on Softy yesterday. You were doing your radio rounds yesterday, but what I had heard, and I can't remember who you were on with. It might have been Brock or it might have been Softy. No, it was actually Mike Sando. So what I'd heard, and I think Sando basically confirmed, is that Kubiak was waiting out the Saints search. And Darren Rizzi, who yesterday his name popped up in the news, not related to Seattle, but he's still like sort of in the mix for the Saints job. Like Denver's offered him a job on their staff. He used to work with Sean Payton, and he's not taking it either yet because he's still waiting. So I'm guessing a lot of these Saints guys, and I had been someone else pointed this out to me that Kubiak is from Houston. Obviously, Gary coached there. That's where his family lives. So they loved coaching in New Orleans, and you've talked to this more than anyone. Going from New Orleans to Seattle, you just essentially went from Alabama to Seattle this week. It's not an easy trip. So different lifestyle, different weather. What I understood a lot, I got the sense, my gut was that Fraley was the dude. Kind of digging around this week and asking around. He was not. He was a fallback to Kubiak. Kubiak was kind of in the driver's seat, like Mike Garofalo said. And I think he was holding up the search more than the Seahawks were moving slowly. So that kind of threw me. I kind of read that wrong. So I'll admit when I'm wrong. I was kind of hard on them last week, and turns out they were waiting on the guy they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people were wrong. It definitely read as Hank Fraley being the guy for a lot of that process, and I think also part of it, Jeff, is, I mean, let's be honest. I don't know that anybody's like thrilled about Clint Kubiak. I don't think that means that he's bad, but there's not a lot of buzz around him, and if you really like, if you put your hands over their names and you didn't know anything else about them, but you said, okay, how old is this guy? Where has he coached before? Who has he coached under? You'd kind of say like Kubiak's got a really good resume. Like he's coached with some of the best offensive minds out there, and he's just got a couple years of doing it, but that's actually a better resume than any of the other guys that were really being considered for this role, who have never done OC duties, who've never, like, a lot of them haven't really coached under a lot of guys or learned from a lot of guys. Like, there's a lot of, I fall for this as much or more than anybody. Like Grant Udinsky, for me, 28-year-old wonderkind, you have no idea what his ceiling is, but his floor is rock bottom, man. And with Kubiak, you don't have the same risk profile at all. And if you're Mike McDonald, I don't think you make the decision based off of, I want to make sure it's a safe choice, but I think you want to make sure that who you pick is going to do a good job. Like, the worst case scenario is that they do a good job. Excuse me, folks. I'm still recovering from my illness, so I'm going to be muting and clearing my throat and try to coordinate that as best as possible. But
yeah, and I think that was kind of my takeaway from this last. You asked me before, like, I've listened to a lot of shows. I've listened to a lot of, like, when you've gotten into like the league-wide view of Kubiak, I can't really find people who have a bad thing to say about him. And he's not perfect. Like, you went over the show, like, he has not been a great offensive coordinator. He's oddly tied himself to like lame duck defensive coaches. But I think like Derek from our show kind of went through the exact cycle that you just talked about, where at first you hear the name, you're like, meh. And then you start digging into it and you compare him to, I think what fans do, and look, I'm very guilty of this, is you want like a fun story to tell yourself. Position coaches, coordinators, we don't know. So we just want a story to tell ourselves. The Udinsky story is an easy one. Like the 28-year-old wonder kid. They read that article, like that. We all did it with Ryan Grubb last year. Like, you pair the best college mind with the best defensive NFL mind. It's a fun story. Hank Fraley, this team's had no O-line for 10 years, basically. You put like the O-line dude, but you seem to forget that he's never called play before, and offensive linemen are not, there's not a lot of, so I think when you like really like take emotion out of it, I think Kubiak is definitely by far the best resume. It's just the shine came off him after everyone got injured and New Orleans fell off a cliff. But like, I heard his dad talking on 710 yesterday, and he's kind of just going over all the people he's been around in his career. Like, started at Texas A&M with like Cliff Kingsbury and Mike Sherman and some of the guys they've had down there. And then he ends up with like Kyle, and he's been around his dad, and it sounded like he really learned a lot from Kyle. Like he was his like the passing game coordinator with Kyle is like the big job. That's where Bobby Slowick was. That's what some of the other guys were. And him game planning, and he really learned a lot. And there's been some other guys I can't think of off the top of my head, but I think if you like compare his resume to what I'm not saying he's going to be Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, but the resumes is kind of similar. And he wasn't around that like super Washington staff or anything like that, but like he's been around Kyle. The bloodlines are very similar. I think it's a pretty good hire overall. Like what could have been with like a Udinski or a Fraley where you're just hoping you can create like a Bevel Cable situation. And so I've kind of come around, and I know Derek from our show has kind of gone through that full cycle where he was totally out, didn't raise his hand when you asked, like, is anyone excited about this? And then he's the guy he wants. And just listening to people around the league, like Nate Tice and some of the other guys, Daniel Jeremiah, Baldy, like all these guys have been on. There seems to be a pretty high regard for him as a coach. Even the New Orleans people that have been around him, none of those guys were trashing him on the way out, like how we felt about Waldron leaving and how we felt about Shoddy at the time and how we felt about Grubb last year. Maybe not you, but if you ask Josh Cashman, for example, about Grubb, like when an OC leaves and it doesn't work, there's usually a very negative. There hasn't really been that. So I think it's I'm not like over the moon about it. But I still think it's a pretty good pairing. Trigger warning for you, especially, and some other people. I don't know if you heard Gary yesterday on the radio. I don't know if you've heard his son talk very often. He's not going to win the press conference. And he's a dry guy from what I've heard. I've dug around. Gary, I've interviewed Gary before. Very dry. Gary's one of the best offense coordinators the last 30 years. Gary talked about how much he learned from Norv Turner, another one of the driest guys you'll ever meet in your life. One of the best offense coordinators of the last 30 years as well. So if you're coming in expecting like Clint Kubiak to be Pete, I know like Dana from our show, I think she's going to be bummed out. So I'm not expecting him. Like, if you ever heard Kyle talk, it's not super exciting.
You know, you texted me about that. And so I listened to a little bit of Gary Kubiak on the interview with Brock and Salk, which is a great get to have him on the show and a smart thing to do. You know, I'm kind of known for really judging people on press conferences pretty quick, and it's not press conferences. I just
vibes.
This is a Gen X thing, so you'll have to watch the show. But if anyone ever watched the show Angel, which was a spinoff from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there was a demon, and his talent. Well, he ran like a entertainment bar, and if you went up on stage and sang, he could read you. He could like tell your future. I kind of have that when someone starts talking, and if I listen for a little bit, I feel like I have a pretty good read on them within first few minutes of hearing them talk. And so that was the case with Shane Waldron for sure.
You said at the first press conference, and I was like, come on, man.
And it wasn't that he was a bad play caller, but I was like, this guy's not going to command respect as a leader. I could that's not who he is. And I heard Gary Kubiak, and to me, like, it's not about whether he's entertaining or dry or not. He's very comfortable with himself. He's a cowboy kind of, like he literally is now, but yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, whether it's the most entertaining, and I don't really care about that as much, but if someone is self-assured and they are confident and they believe in what they're doing, then the people that follow them often will as well. So that's what I'm going to be listening for Clint Kubiak. It doesn't have to be like a certain type of persona. In fact, like there's a lot of times where people that are super entertaining set off different alarm bells for me, Jeff. It's like, yeah, I was worried with Pete Carroll that he was going to be all, personality and no substance. And that thankfully turned out to not be true. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a chance to ask him some questions. I've got some things lined up, but, the other thing that kind of came to mind as you were talking, two things. One, there's a trend starting to happen in the NFL where people, I think, are hiring away offensive line coaches to be OCs without play calling duties. It happened to Arizona. Arizona just lost their offensive line coach to Dallas. Brian Schottenheimer hired their offensive line coach, who's supposed to be very good. And they didn't get to protect him, I guess, because apparently it's a step up to go from offensive line coach to OC, but he's not going to play calling duty. So I'm not exactly sure if that's the case, but I think we're going to start to Adam what is it? Stenovich in
Houston.
And yeah. And so like, you've got a lot of these guys that are kind of stashed away as offensive line minds as OCs. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be a trend. The other thing is Clint Kubiak has been a coach, an offensive play caller under defensive coaches. And who was Kyle Shanahan like kind of brought to the fore under? A defensive coach in Dan Quinn. There's a lot of people that have this defensive mindset who have been attracted to this specific scheme. And so that pairing has worked in a lot of places throughout football history. And I think that's an encouraging aspect. But the last thing I'll say there is, I think a lot of things that are probably, I don't know if this is for everybody else, but this is where I am as a Seahawks fan is, I want to break out of the middle. I want to break out of being boring and irrelevant. Like, that's like, I want that. And every single move they make, I'm looking at it as, are we closer to doing that or not? And I think the general feeling would be with Clint Kubiak is, I'm not sure that he's the guy that's going to get us out of that. Like, that's probably the concern, is Udinsky, maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and this guy takes the league by storm, and for a year you're just doing things nobody expected and you're blowing up. I don't know that that's really what people are expecting from Kubiak. The reality, though, is if this defense takes a step forward from where it was to end last season, which it should, by all accounts, it should be better next season than it was this season. You're going to have a top 10 defense. And if you can get this offense to go from, 18th to 10th or 12th, which isn't a huge jump, and I think is realistic if they could just avoid all the turnovers, then you've got a playoff team. So we'll see. I think it's hard to, I would understand the people that are not super excited. I don't feel like super excited about this hire, but I think it's probably going to turn out to be a pretty good one. I was not super excited about the Darrell Bevell hire. That worked out pretty well too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I don't think I haven't seen anyone like jumping for joy about this, but I think it has a higher upside than people give it credit for. I think this offense, what it can do, like they've had feels like a running game issue for so long. Last year they got away from play action under center and some of the stuff they elevate the quarterback. The Shanahan scheme is supposed to help with interceptions and turnovers and make things easier on the quarterback. So if they can get functional in the run game, avoiding turnovers, I think the offense should be a lot more competent. And I think that's a big step. I don't know if, obviously, you've done the numbers. Like, you want to, the best teams in the league seem to be the best offenses, but they got to have an infrastructure in place. And I think this is a right guy. Obviously, it comes down to, can they fix what's going on up front? And if I were talking to Kubiak, so much of my questions would be based on that. If they go out and they sign like Aaron Banks because he's been in the scheme and they're like, he's competent, like that's a move where I'm going to be like you. I'm going to be like, ugh, like that is such a Seahawks John Schneider guard signing. And it's one of those moves that keeps you in the middle. So that's my fear. I'm like, yeah, I'm with you there. But I think the system, the coaches, I think there's a lot going there. But now they got to get this offseason right.
Well, let's switch gears, talk a little bit about Senior Bowl and a little bit about prospects, and then we'll get into the mock draft stuff. But I got a kick out of this, Jeff. So they have this thing where the Senior Bowl players will vote for, the best player on the opposite side of the ball. So like the offensive line for the American team will vote for who was the best defensive lineman on the American team for the week of practice. And the defensive line and linebackers will vote for who's the best offensive, like that kind of thing. And for most part, I'm going to read you some of the names of the players that were voted for these things. It was like, okay, that wasn't really who jumped out for a lot of people watching. Now, quarterback wise, I'll go through each of these because I think it's worth hearing all these. I don't know if people follow them. It's all on Jim Nagy's Twitter account, but Jackson Dart was named top QB on the American squad. That was voted on from the cornerback and the safety position groups for the American team. Tyler Show was named the top QB on the national squad from the corners. And Tyler Show's a good name to kind of pay attention to. I did think he had he had a significantly better day 2 than I thought any of the other quarterbacks did. Played pretty well. I will tell you overall, like all this Jackson Dart stuff that's coming out, I'm not buying. I think he's a fine prospect. I'd be fine if the Seahawks got him in, maybe even the second round. But honestly, if he was a 3rd round pick, I could get behind that. People are talking about him being maybe the best quarterback in this draft. People are talking about him being a surefire first round pick. The thing that happens a lot, in my opinion, with a lot of evaluating these players is you evaluate them relatively to who you see on the field. And so you're like, oh yeah, Jalen Milroe's throwing the ball in the dirt 5 yards in front of him. Jackson Dart looks like, Peyton Manning compared to that. But what does Jackson Dart practice session this week look like compared to Michael Penix last year, compared to Bo Nix last year, compared to Russell Wilson, who I still remember Russell Wilson's Senior Bowl practices. I remember him doing practice reps, ghost reps, doing all these Russell Wilson oddities. But I don't think Jackson Dart stood out if you look at him against the broader field of quarterback play. But anyway, he's going to get hype. Jack Besh, the wide receiver on the American squad, was voted top. He had a good week. I think it was tough to be a wide receiver in this group with the way the quarterbacks were playing. Jalen Noel, wide receiver on the national squad, was voted top player on that squad for wide receivers. He had a good week. I'm not going to go do the running backs because I just don't think it matters for us. Miles Frazier, named top offensive lineman on the American squad. And this was voted on by the defensive line and linebacker. So let's stop here for a second. This was maybe the guy that jumped out at me more than anybody, other than Gray Zabel, which we'll talk about in a second. But had you watched much Miles Frazier?
No, I haven't. I had seen him as a right tackle. So I'm not looking at right tackles right now. I've been mostly looking at interior guys because that obviously is it's a big pressing issue for us. But no, I hadn't really looked at him. And then everyone who was down there was like, this dude is good. Did you get the sense he can kick inside, or is he a tackle only?
No, he played guard most of the week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, I was really impressed with him. In fact, I was trying to pull up his measurables. Let's see if I can do it really quick. A little tip for folks if you want to get their verified measure. Unfortunately, the Senior Bowl did not do a good job of this. If you look under the Senior Bowl account, and if you search from Senior Bowl and you look for the word verified, you'll get all the verified heights and weights and measurements for every player. But they don't have the names in the tweet. It's in the image. So you have to scroll through every single name to find the guy you're looking for. I don't know if I'm going to find it fast enough. But anyway, Miles Frazier's a big guy. I thought he had a fantastic week. And the only thing is, now we're getting to the part, Jeff, where it's fit. Good player. I believe he's a good player. But I talked to him after practice and at LSU, he loves the zone blocking, not the zone blocking, the gap scheme kind of blocking. Is that a fit for what, Clint Kubiak's going to do? So does now he drop as a possibility? I think that's where it starts to kind of narrow a little bit as the as we start to learn these guys going forward. Still can't find his weight. Darn it. Anyway, so then who else? This one got me. Josh Connerly Jr. was named top offensive lineman on the national squad. I'm telling you, Jeff, I didn't think he had a good week. Like they moved him to right tackle to try some stuff. He got blown up by Mike Green in a really embarrassing way. But I thought even on the left side, I saw him getting beat regularly. And folks, if you are a YouTube member, I think what the second level is or higher, you have access now to every snap of 1v1 drills. It's like 40 minutes worth of 1v1 snaps for the first 2 days of practice. And you can watch Josh Connerly Jr. He's number 55. I actually posted the roster there as well, so you can follow along with the numbers. I was like, I don't think this guy had a good week at all. I think he lost himself money, but maybe I'm wrong. Baron Sorrell from Texas was named top defensive line. Have you ever heard of Baron Sorrell?
I have not. One of my rules when I covered sports was players are typically not the best source of what's happening out there. One of the rules I was taught by like a veteran journalist was like, if you ask most of the players what's going on, they're actually going to give you terrible answers. Your goal is to find the one who knows. And the one who knows is usually like the future coach in waiting. And like best example, KJ Wright back in the day talking about Tedrick Thompson.
Yes.
Those guys were like, this dude is a star. And then we watch the guy, he's slow, he has no ball skills, and we're like, what? Or Sherman talking about Thorold Simon. No knock. Like Sherman, right, they're smart. Like, most players just can't. So when you see these awards, take them with a grain of salt. I always stick to that journalism rule. Players are typically not the best source of what's happening around them. There are some unique ones, but when guys like Connerly who get run over and other dudes we haven't heard of are best defensive linemen, feels like a Jim Nagy social media post more than like an indicator of future success.
That is so well said, and it's very true. I think, and also these players kind of get to know guys there as, you know, as people, and I think that factors in, like, who do they actually enjoy being around, and that probably is a little bit of a popularity contest. But Darius Alexander was top DL on the national squad. Jack Kaiser was a top name linebacker. That's a name we should probably spend a little time on drafts. I think he's an interesting guy. Jeffrey Bassa was the top name linebacker on the national squad. That definitely matched my eye test. And then Dan Jackson and Keandre Jackson were the two safeties. But the interesting thing is when they asked who was the player for the player of the week from all the NFL executives for all 32 teams, who do you think got that?
Player of the week? Mike Green.
Player of the week.
Mike Green?
It's a good guess. Gray Zabel.
Gray Zabel. That's awesome.
Gray Zabel. So that guy, when all 32 execs are naming him, I think that guy's going to sneak into the first round.
It feels like it.
Yeah. I kept calling him people were comparing him to Graham Barton. Apparently, when I came back, I said Graham Norton a lot on my podcast. But yeah, I think that guy's almost an ideal fit for what the Seahawks need, to be honest. Really good zone blocking. And here's the thing. You and I talk, how much we've talked about, like, we like tackle prospects that can play guard, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've also liked Jonas Savaiinaea a lot, right? Well, he is not a tackle prospect that can play guard. He's a guard.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I found out this week. So it's not whether they played tackle in college and then they slide inside. It's, are they legitimately playing the tackle position well in college, and now you slide them inside. And I think that's what Gray Zabel is in this situation.
So where do you see him? Do you see him as a guard or a center?
He could be either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just depends on how they would want to deploy him. I think he'd be ideal as a guard. He'd be a great puller. He'd be a great, like, he's just a good mover. He's super stout, like, smart. I mean, he's good, dude. He's gonna be really good.
You move down from 18, you slide into the 20s, you pick him in the first round, or
I think that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure I could really get behind 18.
That seems
Like,
high.
it seems high, but he's going to be a good player. His floor is pretty high.
Yeah. No, so that's a big jump because I know there was people out there where like you go D line round 1, you take Gray Zabel round 2 at what is it 50 they're picking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be there at 50, so I think it's almost certainly not going to be there at 50. So if you want a guy like him, you may have to take him in the first round now, and or you're gonna have to look at other people. I'm still big on Tyler Booker. I would think that would be like a dream at 18, but Zabel's a name who like everyone who was down there was like, this kid is winning. And the fact that he's voted as the guy, like there wasn't like last year at the Senior Bowl, like Quinion Mitchell, some dude from Toledo, was like dominating. Everyone's like, this kid, and then he goes to the end of the league. He's been awesome. I don't know if there was any of those guys, but Zabel, and he was the guy that got all the buzz this week. It seemed like.
Yeah, he stood out, and I learned something else this week. I know how big of a fan of PFF you are. I mean, all the time you're just like wanting to talk PFF. They actually have grades for practices for the Senior Bowl practices.
They're grading senior. Who is what's his name?
They grade the All-Star games as well, so you can go and see grades for the Shrine game.
Is it
Right
just
now,
Trevor grading, or do they have like a whole team?
I think they have their normal folks doing the grading. I'm not positive, but I never heard of this until this week. And so the data is still under review, so I can't share grades yet for the practices, but I'm kind of dying to know. And I think Trevor shared on their podcast this week that I want to say that I think Gray Zabel was like maybe their top graded player throughout the week. So anyway, we'll get into that. I'll share those, and
cool. That's
sure
cool.
you'll. I mean, it is right. Like
That's cool. I'll take away my issues. I will admit that is cool.
it's helpful when you're trying to comb through so much, and you've got your eye test, and you've got your perspective, and then just to have something else that's it might not be right, but at least it's a stable mechanism that they use to grade. So, all right, are you ready for this, man? Are you ready to do this draft?
I'm like this whole week, the Senior Bowl just like turned my like draft like thirst into like a whole nother level. I'm fully in draft mode already. It's crazy.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this NFC West mock draft. I was thinking we'd do 5 rounds. Are you up for 5 rounds? Like stretch ourselves a little bit?
Yeah, why not?
All right. We're each going to do 2 of the teams. All right. we're going to do this a draft style. I'm going to give you first pick. So you get to decide who is the team you want to choose first.
Seahawks?
Okay. I will take the Cardinals.
Oh, God. I guess I'll take the Rams.
Okay. I got the Cardinals and the 49ers. Are you ready for this? Let's go. All right. So, first pick. So, I'm the 49ers, right? 49ers and Cardinals. So, here's the thing with the 49ers. They definitely need to be thinking tackle because of Trent Williams. And I think you'd think offensive line in general. At the same time, the 49ers draft philosophy has generally been to go after defensive linemen early when they've had high picks. Almost every pick they've had in the top half of the draft has been a defensive lineman. The other thing that they could do, Tyler Warren sitting there, George Kittle is like, he's gonna slow down at some point, and it's a key part of that offense. So the fact the way things fell here, I mean, it's ridiculous kind of the way things fell here. They're going to have to take Will Campbell. Like, there's no doubt in this situation. You can't pass on Will Campbell. Kelvin Banks would be another option. I think he's really good. But they're sitting really, really pretty.
Membu.
Right. Membu. You almost can't go wrong with one of those selections. Honestly, it's not the worst idea for them to pick an Ashton Jeanty either. Because who knows if Christian McCaffrey's ever going to be himself, and Jordan Mason's a free agent. So
he would be so good in that offense.
Like, Jeanty makes sense here as well because they're a team that likes to prioritize weaponry. So I'm going to do what I think would be they'd have to take Will Campbell, and it would really suck because it would really set them up here.
He's very likable too.
He is very likable. So, and I think this big board's been updated by Trevor since.
Yeah, Abdul Carter's not going 7, but
No.
just
But
flip
James
like
Pierce
McMillan.
up there high. Like they got a little lucky with some of these guys leaking into the top 10.
Yeah.
All right. So Will Campbell's the pick for the 49ers.
I don't think he's going to make it there. But
And then the Cardinals are next. Let's see who went. Igbukka is getting up high. All right.
it's the
So
Cowboys.
Cardinals. This has been driving me nuts in a lot of these mock drafts, Jeff. People have been taking tackles, and they just signed a free agent tackle last year. They've got Paris Johnson. I don't think they're going to take a tackle.
No, I think inside they need help.
I think they need pass rush. Like
Their defensive line is terrible.
I think they got to go pass rush. And I think if I'm looking at, if Membu's sitting there, it's going to be really hard to not take him because he and Banks are probably, and Warren. I mean, they don't need Warren with McBride.
No. And they got Tip Ryman.
I think Walter Nolan or Shamar Stewart is the pick here.
What about, yeah.
I thought Shamar Stewart was the best athlete on the field across both teams for Senior Bowl.
That would fit their kind of mentality.
And, he's like, this guy is he's not 290. He's 281. Twitchy. I think he's really good. For some reason, I feel like Walter Nolan is just like what they need. In the middle, although they play with a lot of heavy set guys in the middle. So I'm going to actually change it up. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart. I think they need more edge.
I think they need some juice.
I think they need edge juice. So going to go with Shamar Stewart, who, by the way, is a sneaky, it's become one of the guys I'd love the Seahawks to find a way to get if he falls to them. I think that would be a home run pick. All right. Seahawks are on the clock, Jeff. What do you want to see?
Am I allowed to trade down?
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
I would like to trade down here.
All right. These are the trades that are offered. You got 20, 39, and 40, but you can try to offer to somebody else.
Let's try to get to the Ravens pick.
27.
It's 27 and 59. Let's see if they'll do that.
All right. Done. All right, so the Rams are on the clock. What do the Rams need? The Rams need secondary.
The Rams need secondary. They could use a tackle.
They could use a tackle. They could use a receiver. Mm-hmm. If they let Bobby Brown, their nose tackle, go in free agency.
Kenneth Grant would actually be pretty good.
Kenneth Grant would make sense. Trey Zabel's sitting there. Nick Scourton's an interesting guy.
That corner from Texas would be a pretty. Loveland too. They could use a tight end.
Yeah, Loveland's an interesting option. I mean, they just invested a lot in Colby Parkinson, and didn't
work out though. They tried to get Bowers last year. I think I would take Loveland there.
It's not a bad call out. They also have some linebacker issues.
Jihad
Campbell would be a
kind of annoying. Yeah,
a good pick. Darian Porter, dude, this guy is maybe going to end up being a Reek Woolen freak. I mean, he is 6'2". He ran 22 miles per hour on the practice field. There's rumors he's going to run a 4.2 40, and he's built. He's a little thicker than Reek Woolen. That guy's a really interesting corner.
Yeah, you saw a picture of him.
So, what am I going to do here?
No, it's me.
Oh, you're the Rams. Yeah, what are you going to do?
If I'm them, I'm probably going to take Conley Jr. I think they're kind of weak at tackle, and I think he can slide in there.
All right. I'm sorry I spent all that time talking.
It's okay.
All right, you're back up again. Silence.
So people probably wouldn't love me trading one under the Rams. I passed on Warren. I'm going to go with the flavor of the week. Let's go with Gray Zabel.
Ooh, boy.
Let's do it. We're going flavor of the week.
Love it. Love it. That's a great move right there. All right. So now I'm back on the clock. Why don't you talk through my whole San Francisco pick to make up for me talking through your whole...
Okay, so the first round you took Will Campbell. I think that would be an annoyingly good pick. I don't think there's any chance he makes it down there. they need to keep adding to certain spots. Their defensive line is especially weak coming out of last year. They're going to lose Drake Greenlaw, I'm guessing, in free agency. They can get better there. I'm guessing they don't double up. I'm guessing they could add a skill player. This is where guard could be they could take a defensive lineman. Jihad Campbell would be a pretty nice pick if they lose Greenlaw. They partner him and Warner up there. This would be an annoying double Campbell too. They'd go double Campbells.
Well, there's a couple of things that jump out here, right? Campbell, I think, definitely makes sense. Scattaboo could make sense for the same reason you talked about before.
Whitest running back room in the.
Omar Norman Lott, to me, is going to be a very effective pass rusher on the inside. I think that Derek Harmon is another guy I could absolutely have gone with. A lot of Oregon defensive tackles in the past, and they've had good luck with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. So I think Derek Harmon's actually a pretty logical pick right there. Mm-hmm. They could also go. Linebacker would make sense too. I think we're going to go Jihad Campbell. I think that given what's going on with Dre Greenlaw, I think that makes a lot of sense. But they really need defensive line, man.
Yeah, depth.
People forget they let Javon Hargrave go. I'm going to go Derek Harmon. I just think that's a better. I think that's a better pickup for them. So I'm going to go that direction. Cardinals. This is me as well, right? And so
who did we give them in the first round? We gave
Shamar Stewart. So now they could get Omar Norman Lott and pair him. Again, he's lighter though, so I'm just not sure that's the right fit for them. They could go Scattaboo, keep him in state. James Conner is obviously older. He's a huge part of their offense, but he's getting older. They did go running back second round last year, so it feels like that's probably not the best way to use their capital. They could go double edge. Jared Ivey
was pretty interesting this week.
Yeah, I don't remember him as much. I'd have to go back and see what number he was.
Rob Staten sent me some clips where he just looked like he has some Chris Jones level stuff. But
all right, well, I'll have to go back and look at that. Wyatt Millum did not have a great week.
Tyler Booker's down at 68 in their thing. Savonnet at 73.
That might be an option, actually, because Will Hernandez probably going. I think they could use some offensive line.
Yeah, they could
help.
Use some guard. They were weak last year. They had Evan Brown and Hernandez.
All right, I'm going to go Jonas Avenaya and keep him in state. I think that they'd like that.
Yeah, people would love that pick.
So we're going to take Jonas Avenaya. All right, Seahawks on the clock. What are they going to do, Jeff?
Okay. Keep scrolling down here.
Yeah, and let me know if you want to see any specific position groups. I can pull those up for you.
I think Tyler Booker, I don't think he's going to be there, so I don't want to take him. But, if he's there, I'm doubling up on guard.
I'll do it then, man.
Yeah.
We've already taken some players that probably wouldn't be there for other.
Let's go. I'm doubling up.
Done. Tyler Booker.
Get John Schneider, the biggest approval rating. If he got Tyler Booker and Zabel. Oh, now I can go Donovan Jackson. No, we're not going three guards. But if you keep looking, Jordan Birch is there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting how he's been climbing up the board. He didn't show up to Senior Bowl this week, so he's obviously been getting some good feedback.
This is where my trade. We got Gray Zabel. We got Tyler Booker. And can you sort by? Yeah, that guy's looking pretty good.
And Elijah Arroyo.
I'm tempted by Elijah Arroyo here, but keep going up a bit. Is there any D-line?
All right. Here, it's a little easier with this to do this. I can do defensive
Walker
line.
Pretty tempting here.
An edge.
Jordan Birch is pretty tempting here.
Yeah.
Deion Walker has so much bust potential.
Yeah. I'm at this point, I would not be comfortable drafting him in the second round based on what I saw. Here's the guy that was voted Defensive lineman of the week, 6'4", 260. That's definitely in 13.6 pass rush win rate. I don't know.
No, it doesn't. I'm going to go Elijah Arroyo.
I like that pick, man. I think
the
pick.
Kubiak offense can really enhance a tight end. I think Arroyo, and he's probably going to be ranked pretty low. I'm gonna reach a bit. I think
I'll tell you what, as another thing to think about.
The only problem is I can wait till the third round. There's 5 guys there.
It's exactly right.
Okay,
I mean, you could also trade back. You could also trade back again.
Yeah, but go back to the defensive line.
Let me just tell you, this is Jason Taylor's kid.
Really?
Jason Taylor's kid.
Oh.
He looks like him too. 6'5". He's built. He's going to put on weight. He will end up in the pros. He'll end up being 265 easy. He has good hands. He's going to be a good blocker. Like,
I think you need a good blocker in this system.
I came away really impressed with him.
So there's Fannin. I don't think is a great fit anymore. I think Fannin's not a blocker. I don't know if he fits the Kubiak offense as much.
Yeah,
Ferguson, you said, had a pretty good week.
I love the way he moved this week. He fit it, like, from an athletic standpoint. He looked like he belonged. I thought he was going to look slow. He didn't. He looked pretty good. Arroyo's got a much higher ceiling, though.
I think I'm going to go Jordan Birch here. I think we're going to go back to the list. Defensive interior, Jordan Birch, 59. We're going to go for a tight end in the third.
All right, so we're back to the 49ers. We have taken for the 49ers so far Will Campbell, Derek Harmon. Oh, my gosh. We're going to have to hurry up if we're going to get through 5 rounds. All right. All right.
Too much analysis.
What's their receiver situation, right? Like, they signed Ayuk.
Debo, they said they're going to keep, but we'll see. They have John Jennings. They have Pearsall. So they're not. They're pretty.
Okay, so they have not. We did not end up taking a linebacker. I'm taking Jeffrey Bassa right here.
Ugh,
I think
you're killing this Niners draft.
I think that's a good fit for them. I'm not going to think twice about it. Cardinals. I don't think they need another tight end.
I like that corner also.
We've drafted Shamar Stewart and Jonas Avenaya. They do need help in the secondary. Azariah Thomas.
Yeah, I like that corner from Florida State.
I think he's a nice, tall, lanky corner. All right, you're up in the third round.
Now, my draft strategy worked. All the tight ends are still there. We're going to take Elijah Arroyo.
Great pick. All right, Rams are up. Who are you going to take?
We are going to take Jalen Milroe. They need a quarterback of the future.
Bold. All right. We are now the 49ers, and now we're like, I think that they might look at tight end here, right?
Yeah, this would be but David Lombardi says their tight end room is like one of the best.
Yeah. Let me take a quick look through here because I think you could make the case that they could go offense.
Ferguson would be a pretty good pick here. Jackson Dart, they got a 118.
Willie Lampkin, everyone loved him. Not me as much. All right, I just want to see Quinn Ewers. Peoples had a good week. I think it's a little early for him though. We're gonna go ahead and man, do they go center? Would they go center?
Center would make sense for them.
I like Jonah Monheim this week. I thought he played pretty darn well.
Tight end makes sense. Ferguson from Oregon.
All right, sorry, I'm taking too long. Let me look at a couple positions real quick. We're gonna go IOL and tackle because I'm not totally buying these. Like Jonah Monheim's way too low from my perspective. Miles Frazier is way too low.
So that's going to be a hack.
Yeah.
Luke Lachey, they like their Iowa tight ends.
Yeah. So, by the way, we can get close to his height and weight. Yeah, 6'5", 325. This guy's a big boy. All right. I'm going to take Jared Wilson. I'm going to go center.
All right.
Rams are up.
I'm up with the Rams. Who have I taken so far?
You have taken Josh Connerly Jr. and Jalen Milroe.
Okay, so we need some defense here. Anything at the corner, linebacker?
Here, corner, linebacker.
Ooh, Jack Kaiser, I think would be a pretty good pick here.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that he would fit really well in that defense.
Is that who you want, or do you want to look at some other
No,
options?
I think that's who I want. Let's go with him.
All right, Jack Kaiser is a Ram. Back to the 49ers. Man, how many freaking picks have they had? Look at that.
They got that comp pick for, I think, D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah. 4 picks in the top 100.
They got 3 fourth rounders.
3 fourth rounders. All those comp picks, man. All right.
Maybe we should have done the 4-rounder.
Yeah, let's just pick a quarterback. That would be funny. Jackson Dart's still available, by the way.
Okay.
No way. All right, so we've gone 2 offensive linemen, defensive lineman, a linebacker. I think their secondary is pretty strong. Maybe running back. Maybe now is the time to look at running back.
Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, I think Damian Martinez is a really interesting one for them. I'm going to take him.
Yeah, this is where they tend to draft their running backs.
All right, Cardinals are up. Dude, I'm going to do something wild here for the Cardinals. I think they're taking a quarterback here.
Start planning life after Kyler.
Yeah, and there's no way Jackson Dart's going to be available, so I'm not going to take him. I'm going to take Will Howard. Totally different type of quarterback than Kyler Murray. Okay, Rams are up.
Where's the Seahawks? Oh, they traded away. That's the Ernest Jones pick. They still got the comp pick. Okay.
Yep.
So who? Oh God, Quinn Ewers is still there.
You've taken Josh Connerly Jr., Jalen Milroe, and Jack Kaiser. So
this
tackle.
is where we need some corners, maybe safeties.
Yeah. Yeah, corner would be logical. Upton Stout would be a really solid pick. He's
Denzel Burke is also a pretty good pick for them.
A little bit of a smaller corner, but
they picked up Forbes last year from the Washington. He was total. Let's go Denzel Burke. I feel like they get these annoyingly small, good players, and they just work out for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. All right, so the Seahawks are back up.
Okay, so we've taken two offensive linemen, a D lineman, and a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on at receiver?
At receiver, Pat Bryant's a name. Kyle Williams had a nice week.
It feels early for Ricky White.
Ricky White.
Is this the right range for him?
Maybe. I will tell you one name that jumped out to me here, and that's Aeneas Peoples.
Yeah, I don't know much about him.
So he's like kind of a nose tackle type, but a pretty good penetrator as well. Now, he's a little bit light, at least based on this. Mm-hmm. But he's an interesting name if you're looking at. I think this is a place where you could start looking at some of the defensive tackles because
they could get some of those big boys. Shamar Turner still.
Shamar Turner, Jamari Caldwell, like this guy was.
I think that's much more interesting.
Yeah,
pull up his size.
He is 6'1", like 340.
Yeah. I think that's my dude here.
I like that pick.
Let's go. Jonathan Hankins, you're being replaced by a 4th round pick.
I like it. All right, 49ers are up. And why this is crazy. I'm just refusing to pick him because it's too stupid. The 49ers are going to take Peoples. I think that they're going to double up, try to rebuild the interior of that offensive line.
You got back-to-back picks in the 4th round.
My goodness, dude.
About time for Quinn Ewers.
God, I hate that team so much.
Yeah.
All right, they're going to take Pat Bryant. I think they need to start. Well, let me take a look at the receivers and see if there's a specific type of receiver that works for them. Kyle Williams might be more actually their kind of receiver. Pat Bryant's. Yeah, he's a little bit more like the. I think I'm going to stick. Well, Ricky White. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stick with Pat Bryant. That was my first instinct. The 49ers are up again. My goodness, dude. All right, we got running back.
Kyle McCord.
Uh,
That does seem like a Shanahan
that's actually
quarterback.
not a bad call.
Yeah.
Like, who's their backup quarterback right now?
I think it was Josh Dobbs. Who's not really a fit for them.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we're gonna go Kyle McCord. I actually don't think that's a bad pick at this point in the draft. All right, the Cardinals are up. I think they're gonna go back on the defensive side of the draft, back to pass rush. So CJ West is an interesting name. I think Upton Stout, like they really do need corner help.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy.
I'm gonna go with
some of the guys they took from the high picks. Ugh.
I'm gonna go with Upton Stout. I could really make the case for like one of the other pass rushers, but I think Upton Stout's a really solid corner. Smaller guy, but a really good cover corner. All right, Seahawks are up with their final pick.
So we've been heavy on offensive line, defensive line. We could go with corner here. We could go with the skill. Go to wide receiver. We're going to take Ricky White.
I love that pick, man.
We're going to take Ricky White in the 5th round.
All right, so
can we go team by team here?
Yeah, we'll go team by team if it lets us. No, will it not?
Oh.
It won't
All
let us
that? We can't even analyze it now? Full results.
Full results. I think that we'll have to. Oh man, that sucks. That won't let us do that. All right. Well, so 49ers. We'll go through this real quick.
If you click the team, does anything change?
No, it basically gave an error that they're not able to do this for more than 3 teams yet. So we did 4.
Lesson learned.
So the 49ers get Will Campbell, which I think is unrealistic, but huge for them. And then they get Derek Harmon, who's realistic and would be a perfect interior pass rusher for them. Then they get Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker.
This is an annoyingly good draft.
Really solid, meets a need for them. And then Jared Wilson, the center. That was kind of a pivot point, right? Like could have gone a bunch of different ways. I think centers. We're going to learn about this with Kubiak, but centers are a really important position. I think they've not gotten great center play, so I think Wilson could be helpful there. Damian Martinez, the running back, I think is an interesting pick and a logical one there. And then they get their back-to-backs, and he has Peoples, who's another interior penetrator and run stuffer, and then Pat Bryant, the receiver, and then Kyle McCord, the quarterback. What do you think about that, Jeff?
I think you crushed it, and I hate it. The Niners have done laughably bad with their comp picks since they've lost so many of these guys. They lost like the executive to Washington, D'Amico Ryans. If you look at who they've taken, it's like Jake Moody, Jair Brown, Danny Gray. It's actually laughable. So Brian, as a drafter, has gotten like 8 picks here. So I'm hoping John Lynch does not watch this video, but if they get Campbell 11th overall, like that's an annoyingly possible good fit. Can play guard early, can shift out if Trent Williams retires. Likeable guy. You hit the D-line and linebacker need. They're still pretty. They would have to have a really good free agency if this was their draft because their D-line's still pretty deficient.
Yep.
So I think that's where it might be a little weak. Like other than the 2nd round pick, they're not really adding much to a D-line that really lacked depth.
Harmon and Peoples I think is a pretty decent pull.
It's a pretty decent pull, but when they were going, they had a lot more than that.
Yeah. Agree with you there. All right, so Cardinals, man, they start off real strong. Shamar Stewart, I think, is almost an ideal get for them at 16. I think that's very realistic.
Yeah.
And then they get Jonas Evanaya. That could work or not. I think it's a Cardinals type of pick.
So this is a very Cardinals draft so far.
And then they get Azariah Thomas.
Yeah.
Corner.
This feels like right out of Monty Ossenfort's playbook.
I think that helps them at a position of pretty key need. And then Will Howard. What do you think about this?
I think the Brian is loving this pick, thinking they need to get after him. I don't know who their backup quarterback was last year. I think it's like, I can't remember that dude. Clayton Tune. So they actually do need a backup quarterback. They could use some depth. I think Will Howard's a pretty good pick. Like in the 4th round, like he was great in the college playoffs. I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I think that the fans, I don't think this is just a me thing. I think folks are ready to have an alternative to Kyler Murray. So
they need to start.
I don't know if Will Howard's the right guy, but he's a guy that has starting potential, and I think you could do that. So, and then Upton Stout, this one's tough. I mean, I think Upton Stout's one of the better corners in this draft. There's going to be some teams that get scared off by the fact that he's 5'9". But I think he's a good get. So they get 2 corners to add to Garrett Williams. And Garrett Williams is a really solid corner. So I think they help their secondary. They've already got good safety play. Part of the way you help a pass rush is get better coverage as well. Yeah. So I think this is a pretty good draft for the Cardinals. Any other thoughts for you on that?
No, they're like very, very solid across the board. Me and you were very critical of their draft last year, even the year before. If like they had premium to give up Will Anderson, they ended up with Paris Johnson and Darius Robinson, and they took Marvin Harrison high. But what they could have ended up with and what they did, it felt like a missed opportunity at the time. Feels bigger one now. And I think this would be one of their most complete drafts in 3 years.
All right, let's go through the Rams, and then we'll finish the Seahawks real quick. So the Rams, they get Josh Connerly Jr. in the 1st round. Then they get wow, they don't have a 2nd round pick?
Yeah, the Braden Fisk trade.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, they're probably still happy about that. Then Jalen Milroe. I love this pick, dude.
They need a pick quarterback of the future.
They do. No, I love it because it's funny. Could you pick a player that's more different than Matt Stafford than Jalen Milroe? Like one of the best passing quarterbacks in the league that is not like one of the least athletic quarterbacks in the league for Jalen Milroe. That'd be funny.
I hope they do it.
And then Jack Kaiser at the end of the 3rd round is a comp pick, linebacker from Notre Dame. I think that makes sense. They don't want to pay that position, so you got to draft it. And then Denzel Burke, corner, solid guy. They need better corner play for sure. And then, do they have a 5th round pick? No, they don't.
No,
they don't have a lot of picks.
No,
they don't have a lot of picks.
They had the comp pick, but they've made a lot of moves in the last couple of years. So,
I don't know if I loved this draft for them.
No, that'd be a weak draft for them.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah, so they didn't really build on any strengths. They kind of took some luxury spots there. This is a team that they rebuilt that defensive line really quickly when we were hoping that the whole team would kind of crumble. They have a really good foundation. If they can add like the next level of their defense or make their offense a little better, they kind of fudged around the edges with this one. So they're in a tough spot. There weren't a lot of great options at their spot. Like you look at the guys that went after, none of those guys are jumping out as like the Rams should have taken this dude. Like maybe Kenneth Grant.
Kenneth Grant would have been a good pick. I even think Gray Zabel would have been a better pick. I'm not quite out on Josh Connerly Jr., but I just
feel like they've invested so much in the interior. I think Rob Havenstein's getting a little older. Alaric Jackson's a free agent, not great. I think they need a tackle, but
yeah,
I'm not excited. I went into like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I think Connerly's my dude, and then I watched him down there at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, I don't think he's the Seahawks pick.
All right, so then the Seahawks. Last one. We'll go through these.
We traded down heavy.
Great. I mean, the trade down's great. I don't know how realistic it is, but great. And you got Gray Zabel at exactly the spot you'd want to get him. So A+ there. And then at 50, you pick up Tyler Booker. So now you've got a guy that could play center, guard, or tackle for you. And either side, by the way. And you've got a guy that can play guard.
Yeah, Tyler Booker slobs in at left guard.
So could be really big, you know? And then you go with your pick you picked up and you get Jordan Birch. Mm-hmm. So you get kind of a bigger edge to help on the pass rush. Guy's got a lot of potential. maybe my favorite pick of your draft, Elijah Arroyo here in the third round. What did you think about that?
I think tight end is a sneaky need with the Kubiak scheme. I think he's like some of the things that Noah Fant does well. I think this guy could do it for a tenth of the price. I think he looked really good stretch in the field. And then you look at all these and just mastering the draft kind of thing. Look who went the next 4 picks. It was Tez Johnson, Gunnar Helm. So that seemed to be the range for that spot. And I think third round tight end to pair with Barner, I think that'd be a really fun group.
Yeah.
They're going to play a lot more 12 and 21 personnel in the next couple of years. The third receiver is much less of a need than we think with the Kubiak scheme coming here.
Yeah, I really like the pick. I thought it was a great pick. I'm a little conflicted with Mason Taylor, who's interesting, goes to Pittsburgh here. He's going to be a Darnell, Washington kind of player, you know? I think he's a better mover than Darnell Washington, but he's going to be a strong blocker. And I think Mason Taylor is a very projectable NFL tight end. So that was the only one that, Arroyo is he's definitely the higher upside pick for sure. But that was my only question mark there. And then all the way down in.
It's going to be a hard wait. The Ernest Jones pick is gone, so we're not picking until the comp picks.
Jamari Caldwell here is, I think, a great pickup, man.
This is where you should take those guys.
Yeah. You can't come out of this draft without a defensive lineman in the first 4 rounds. You just can't. And Caldwell's got some real pass rush.
So if you get 2 guards, edge, you'd have Birch and you can have the new Fisk and we got Birch and Caldwell teamed up and Arroyo.
Yeah.
Pretty good draft.
Yes. And then you get Ricky White. Talk about that.
So again, one of the things about the Kubiak scheme is they're going to get a lot less 11 personnel. And I think we've seen just from the Seahawks, Waldron really struggled. When they went 3 receivers, Waldron's offense, which is sort of like a branch off of the Kubiaks, was much more successful when they went heavy tight end. When they tried to be an 11 personnel team, it didn't work. And so I think we spent a lot of time on who's the third receiver going to be. I think they just need kind of the mid to late round guy. I think Ricky White has a lot of special teams skills. I think he can be kind of like a Juwan Jennings style role and then kind of advance a little bit. I think him at that spot is a really, really valuable pick. So I think he's got some really good skill. I think he's got some flaws. He can get beaten up by bigger corners. But I think he'd be a really good guy to throw into that room where they have some different skill sets and they can use a dude who's a little quicker and a little shiftier, and I think he'd fit.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting pick, and I think the Seahawks, you ended up giving them some additional weaponry on offense with a tight end that's a mover and a receiver that's got some upside. So I like that. You went heavy, managed to do heavy on the offensive line, and you got a moving defensive lineman. I think it's a good draft. If the Seahawks can trade back and pick up a second round or even a third rounder, it's a huge win this year.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be really hard to do.
Yeah, who's moving up in that scenario? Tyler Warren's in there. I don't think there's a chance he's going to make it down there. We're seeing mocks now. Someone had him going 4th overall the other day, I saw.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying Nathan a couple weeks ago. I don't think Nathan was in on him. We don't have to worry about that. He's not making it down there. So,
and I want to be clear. I really like Tyler Warren as a prospect. I don't think he's Brock Bowers. I don't think he's George Kittle. I don't think he's Gronkowski. I think he's a good tight end, and I think he's very likely to be a very complete tight end. And I'd love to have him on the team. But if I was a team that had a top 5 pick and that's where I'm spending it, I'm like, holy crap, this draft sucks.
I think my whole view of Warren is relative to the draft.
Yeah.
In last year's draft, I wouldn't even sniff him.
In the first round.
Oh, he'd be an amazing pick in the 20s. But Jared Verse last year could have easily gone 9th overall. Where would he go in this draft? Quinion Mitchell.
Jared Verse would be the #1 overall pick.
Yeah, where would Quinion Mitchell go in this draft?
He probably wouldn't have been last year. Jared Verse, man, we were so all over that. And he was the 4th edge in almost every draft expert's list.
The Colts took Latu, and me and you were out on Latu. Why couldn't that just happen? Go to that irrelevant team. We would never have to worry about him.
Yeah.
The Vikings trade up. They give up a lot.
to get Dallas Turner.
Dallas Turner. It's like, what? Why did you have to let the Rams get this dude? Like, me and you, our projection of him was dead accurate. Like, he looked like Terrell Suggs this year.
Yep.
I didn't think it would happen in year one. And he was the type A. Like, I went and watched our YouTube video. Me, you, Evan, and Sean Clement did a show. I went and watched that a couple days ago. I don't know why. I was in a bad spot just thinking about Jared Verse. But me and you are talking about how, like, cannot pass Jared Verse. Like, we thought Murphy would be gone. Don't get me wrong. But,
yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, like him, Quinion Mitchell went 20. Brian Thomas went 23. Like, Brian Thomas is a better wide receiver prospect than anyone in this draft. 23.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Tyler Warren, it's relative to this, but. Well,
I thought that was interesting. I'm going to think my biggest takeaway is, Jeff, man, the 49ers are they have so many picks in the right places. They're going to have to be absolute idiots to not come out of this draft a lot better.
That was the worst part of the mock, how this is a good year for them. If they got free agent money, even if they signed Purdy, they got a ton of draft capital in good spots. The draft lines up for their needs. The Seahawks got to have a good offseason, man. The Niners are going to rebuild this thing.
Yeah, it does not set up for the Seahawks to be able to gain on the rest of the teams in the NFC West, other than maybe the Rams. I think the Rams are going to have a harder time making a jump. The Cardinals, man, I really think they blew it the last few years.
So do I.
They don't have nearly as much draft capital, and I don't know, man.
Say you take like Will Anderson and Joe Alt or something, like their whole team looks remarkable. Like that's two like blue chips in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe Marvin becomes something, but again, like receiver is to me like the final piece of the puzzle. Like look at Malik Neighbors and what he did for the Giants. They probably didn't have a single win. Brian Thomas with the Jaguars. Those guys were awesome.
Yeah.
Did the team get better? Not really. So they could have ended up with Will Anderson and Joe Alt instead of Paris Johnson and Darius Robinson. I think they blew it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on this Saturday, and I'm going to do something I haven't done for, I don't know when the last time I did. I'm going to go watch the Senior Bowl. It comes on here in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go watch that and see if there's anything of interest. Maybe we'll get some insights. Maybe we'll do some play interviews. Who knows? But appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Please make sure you click like and subscribe. Make sure you follow Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons. And folks, we're gonna have a lot more coming for you. So keep dialed here. There are folks that are wanting to know how you get this podcast on other platforms. So first of all, it's published every single day immediately after the show. But it's published to patreon.com/hawkblogger. So the two places you can get it, either being a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/hawkblogger. And then, by the way, if you get a subscription there, you also get a private link and you can use it to get this podcast on any platform. So you have to be a Patreon subscriber and then you can use it on any platform to get this every single day. Or you can go to Spotify, and Spotify has HB Mornings. If you search for HB Mornings, you'll find it. And a lot of the episodes I make public, so you'll be able to listen to them if you're not a subscriber at Patreon. Some of them are private, and so you have to be a Patreon subscriber for those to work. But those are the two ways. So if you didn't know about it, that's how you get access to this outside of YouTube if you want to listen to the audio version. And appreciate you guys with all the support. And hopefully you guys are enjoying watching the videos I posted of the practice squad, of the Senior Bowl practices. There's defensive line drills, there's pass rushing drills, all sorts of stuff. Lots of footage up there for our YouTube subscribers. I'll probably play some of that and we'll look over some of it together in the coming weeks as we start to analyze some of these players in a little bit more detail. So until tomorrow when I'm back with you, have a great rest of your Saturday. I'm Brian Nemhauser, and this was episode 313 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.